Again, welcome everybody here. My name is Yvonne Cassidy. I am Director of Development at Bottomless Closet. Today is our first Bottomless Closet donor town hall. We hope it won't be a downer. We're very excited that you're all here. So the first thing I want to do is thank you for coming. And the second thing I want to do is to thank all of you for your support in the last 12 months. It goes without saying that it's been a crazy year for everybody. And for many of you, you've supported Bottomless Closet for a long time, but having you in our corner in the last 12 months when things have been so tough for everybody, and in particularly New York City women, it's really, really meant a lot to us. The purpose of today is really to increase our efforts to be more transparent. So you as supporters know and can ask questions about how your contributions have funded our programs and in turn helped New York City women in need. So we really want you to be part of that conversation, and that's what today is about. We're also going to share with you a little bit of our 2021 plans, which is exciting as well. So we're really glad you're here. Before I introduce our two speakers who are going to take us through all this, I just wanted to do a little bit of Zoom housekeeping. And at this point, we're probably all incredibly familiar with Zoom, but just in case anyone isn't, we are going to keep everybody muted for the duration if you're not speaking, just so we'll be able to hear our two speakers as clearly as we can. And on that note, I know everyone's on different devices and all sorts of things, but the best experience will be to put this on active speaker view. So right now, if you have it on active speaker view, you should hopefully be seeing three of us. But whatever your device is, active speaker view will mean you'll be able to see the person who's talking. Obviously, it's a town hall, and that's about asking questions. And the way to ask questions is to put them in the chat. And while you can just chat them directly to me, what I would suggest is sending the chat to everyone, because I think it's really helpful for us all to see the questions that are being asked. And sometimes the question that somebody else might ask might be the one that you were going to ask. So that's helpful too. You can ask the questions as you go along, or you can save them till the end. But do know that if you do them as you go along, I'll be sort of harvesting the questions for the end. So just if they haven't been asked, it's not that we've forgotten about them. We just have a special 15-minute slot at the end where I'll bring the questions back to Yasmin and Melissa. So that's all the housekeeping stuff. And we still have a lot of people coming in, which is awesome. We're really excited. There's 66 people in here at the moment. So let me just introduce our speakers, and then I'll hand it over to them. So Melissa Norden, most of you probably know Melissa is our executive director. And what you might not know is that this week marks 5 years of Melissa being executive director of Bottomless Closet. So she's taken us through a lot of things in those last 5 years, and we're really excited to hear more from her today. Melissa is an attorney by training, but her career has really been dedicated to nonprofits. She spent a lot of time, as some of you will know, in ASPCA in the animal space. She cares about a lot of different causes, and the cause of women and children has always been very, very close to her heart, even before Bottomless Closet. Right now, the key focus for Melissa, and what we talk about a lot in our meetings, is about rebuilding and how to really help clients rebuild their lives after this pandemic, and also to really showcase what's going on for women so people understand, and it's not just a statistic. And that's something that Melissa feels really, really passionately about. Talking to Melissa will be Yasmin Ibrahim. Yasmin is a board member who's been on the Bottomless Closet board for about a year. So those of you doing the maths, that will tell you Yasmin joined right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think that says a lot about a person when everything is falling apart in our own life, for somebody to think, how do I go out there and help other people? So far, Yasmin hasn't been to visit Bottomless Closet or met any of us in person yet, which is so strange, but we're hoping that will happen soon. But undeterred, she stepped up as chair of the program committee, and she brings to that role a lifetime of experience as a strategy consultant. She's worked with women on their economic empowerment at all levels, and it's something she feels really passionately about. On the personal front, Yasmin has 2 children who've been instructed to stay outside the room for the duration of the next hour, and her focus is on helping them get through the pandemic as happily and as healthily as possible. So with all of that said, I am going to hand over to Yasmin and Melissa. As I said, I'll be handling the questions, so I'll be back at the end. And if anyone has anything else, feel free to chat me directly. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Yvonne, for that introduction. Welcome, everyone. We are so happy to have you all here joining us live. And for those who will be listening to the recording afterwards, thank you for joining us in this discussion about a topic that is very near and dear to both Melissa and my heart, as well as Yvonne's. I thought a good way to start the discussion today would be to talk about the women at the center of all of this, the New York City women that Bottomless Closet serves, which were the primary reason why I was so attracted to getting involved with the organization. So Melissa, why don't we start there? Can you tell us a little bit about the profile of the women that Bottomless Closet focuses on serving?
Sure. Thank you so much again, Yasmin, for joining me today. We're really excited that you're on our board and excited that you've taken on our first town hall. So thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. We serve a population of women that many of us know. We serve women across the 5 boroughs of New York City. They are disadvantaged. More than 52% of them are homeless, 75% of them on public assistance, and have a combined household income under $10,000 a year. More than half are unbanked. This is a population of people who are the working poor. Many of them have part-time jobs, but just not enough of an income to become self-sufficient. The good news is that 70% of them are age 40 and under. And so we're really introduced to them at the time of their first appointment at a really important point in the trajectory of their career and their life, a time where we can make a difference. So it's exciting to meet them at that time.
Thanks, Melissa. So if you think about the picture that you just painted for us with a profile, it feels like, in the best of times, they face, a lot of challenges. How has this year been different? Like with COVID, has that exacerbated some of these challenges?
So the funny and not so funny thing is that a lot of these issues and most of these issues were there before the pandemic. All the pandemic did was turn a spotlight on issues that were already there. We are experiencing what people are calling now a quote unquote she-cession, as 3 million women have lost their jobs during the past year. That's a huge number. And if you look at the industries that have been most hard hit by the pandemic, they're industries that are female dominated. Things like hospitality, small businesses. Women own an incredible number of small businesses. Retail, fashion. This pandemic hit women very hard. Also, 83% of them we serve are women of color. We know the pandemic hit women of color even harder. 8.8% of Latinas are unemployed, and 8.5% of Black women are unemployed. There's been a tremendous impact to this community, which already has many burdens on it. We know there isn't gender equity in the workplace. We know there isn't equal pay. And all of these factors, again, just having a spotlight shown on them, which I actually think will be a good thing long-term, quite frankly. And really most impactfully, the population we serve is that more than 40% of the women we serve are mothers, and 83% of them are single mothers. And homeschooling has been a huge part of this year, especially in New York. I think compared to other cities, we had the benefit that school was open in some way, right? But that was almost more chaotic than it was not being open, because a lot of the time school was closed every day. Moms didn't know if there would be school or wouldn't be school necessarily from day to day. And that really ended up having them lose time in their job search, because over the summer, they didn't know if there'd be school starting, so they couldn't look for a job. Then when school started, there were closures left and right. So it really was so inconsistent. And they also had to homeschool while looking for a job. So again, all of these issues, we know childcare was an issue before this, especially for people living in poverty. So this really just put a spotlight on these issues.
Yeah, I mean, that resonates with me personally. I have 2 little kids, and, the challenges of this past year of being able to work while having to deal with all the homeschooling and the Zoom schooling have been very real. And I remember emailing you about that December jobs report, because it was so shocking to me that 100% of the jobs lost belong to women, but also not shocking because you see where the responsibility lies, particularly when they're that young and they have children.
Right. And there was actually a net job loss for women through December. The men and women both left the workforce, but women left in such bigger numbers than men that there was a net job loss through December of 130,000 jobs. And that's only continued into the new year, sadly.
Well, so on the brighter side now, we're nearing the end of Q1, and we're starting to see with, great news in New York about the vaccine opening up to 30 plus, and we're starting to see a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. Are you at Bottomless Closet starting to see any shift in, the women that you work with getting more job interviews, or, are we seeing any positive signals?
Right. So the answer is a little bit. So we have had clients get hired during this time. I will say they are in very specific areas: grocery store workers, certified nursing assistants, security guards, people in the IT space. What we're now referring to as workers, which I hope that term stays because they have been incredibly essential during this time. But the growth has been sluggish, especially for women of color. We did see an uptick in job interviews. I think when we took our survey in June of 2020, 66% of our clients have reported not even having an interview. And by December of 2020, it was only 33% hadn't had an interview. Those numbers are still high. But again, we have an uptick in people getting jobs. We have a slight uptick in people requesting remote coaching or resume help. And some people getting curbside pickup of clothing to get out there and interview. We can also say that in February and January combined, we saw almost 550 clients for workshop programming, which is actually a trend upward ahead of 2020. So the good news is that people are starting to get jobs. They're starting to get ready to get jobs, and they are keeping their skills upgraded and waiting for new jobs.
All right, well, that's positive. It could be lagging, but at least you're starting to see some traction.
Exactly.
Great. So let's shift now to Bottomless Closet as an organization during COVID. I'm, in my day job, I work with a lot of organizations, startups and established and for-profit and nonprofit, and it's been fascinating to see how they've taken a hard look at their operating models and made specific pivots throughout this year to survive. So for Bottomless Closet, you've run this organization now, for 5 years now, but particularly the last year with COVID, what are some of the challenges that you've faced leading the organization this past year?
So, I know, Yasmin, you haven't been at the offset, which is, I can't wait for you to come there and experience it firsthand. One of the things we've prided ourselves on for 22 years is how we are so high touch. Touching is not something people want to do right now, right? But we are so high touch and we're so personalized, and a lot of appointments with our clients and with hugs. And we are really missing that this year. But also in March of 2020, none of our staff was working virtually. None of our volunteers who we rely on so much are working virtually. And we all had to learn to work virtually and to serve our clients in a new format. And that, was certainly a challenge in the first few days, but March 16th, we were up and running and serving clients. And so we had to do things quickly, but we had all the tools in place to do it. We just had to think about how we could do it best for our clients.
And I was certainly there as I joined, I saw the team kind of scrambling and making these very quick pivots. Can you share with us some of those successful pivots that were made to meet the changing clients' needs?
Sure. So the first thing we did, and big credit to our amazing program director, Pam Culness, we started serving our clients immediately to see what they needed. We could have just gone ahead and figured out what we think we should do, but we thought it would be best to ask our clients because they're at the heart of everything we do. So Pam sent out a survey with the program team to our clients and asked them what they need. And unfortunately, we learned some staggering things immediately in March of 2020. We learned that 70% of clients who had already been through our doors had lost their jobs. That's a huge number. We also learned that, of those who were still working, 86% didn't have access to healthcare if they got sick. And that a third had been sick or were treating a family member who was sick. So these are really staggering numbers. But we also learned a lot about what they needed and wanted in the moment. So the next thing we did was, leverage the resources that we had on our staff, in our network, among our volunteers, and work to put together programming that was responsive to what our clients needed right now. The program that we had in place before was working really well. We've always had a really high approval rating from our clients and really positive experiences. But, we hadn't done a lot of things before that we started trying out in the middle of a pandemic, right? So, we tried to be responsive. And we created 3 new programs that we launched. Together at Home, which was basically making phone calls to all of our clients. We made over 3,000 phone calls to our clients to just hear what they needed. A survey is one thing, but that personal touch. A lot of our clients don't have a community of support. Yes, they lack a job, but they lack the community that's going to support them to get them into the job in many cases. And so they're isolated. As I mentioned earlier, more than half are homeless. Many of them have small children and they have nobody else. They may even be in a physical community in a homeless shelter, but that's also very lonely in its own way. So we broke that isolation and we got them information, resources, coming from a knowledgeable source. A lot of them come from communities where they can't trust people and they know that we are a trusted source of information, especially at a time where in general, the public was getting a lot of bad information. They knew they could come to us to get the right information. Then we, then we launched Upskill at Home, which is basically, we adapted our traditional program model to offer workshops in a virtual platform. Right. Traditionally, our workshops cover financial management, professional development, and personal enrichment. Now we wanted to focus this program content on the client's needs right now. So we created workshops. Actually, we started with a town hall for clients, was the first thing we did. And we had an amazing response. For those who have been to our space, you know that our coaching room also acts as our workshop room in the evenings. And in that room, we could have 20 to 25 clients comfortably. Well, the first workshop had 46 clients. And so that was the first silver lining that we had of the pandemic, that we could accommodate more clients. They didn't have to worry about MetroCard fare to get to us. They didn't have to worry about childcare. We know kids in the next room it's still kids in the next room, but they didn't have to pay for childcare. And we already made such a breakthrough in that space. But clients had issues with their landlord trying to throw them out because they couldn't pay their rent. So legal issues around that. Financial issues, some had actually earned some money and wanted to know if they should keep it invested or liquidate it. A lot of them were dealing with health challenges, and self-care was a topic they needed as well. Technology was big. And almost 2,200 clients described this program as a lifeline during the pandemic over the past year. We saw a 23% increase in the number of clients taking workshops in 2020 over 2019. That's about 400 more clients, a huge number. So we really tried to be there with what they needed now. Even if, again, it wasn't an area of expertise that we had before, we went and we sought out people who had that expertise to deliver programming to our clients. And we kept learning. We kept taking surveys throughout the year. We kept tweaking our programming and services to respond to those client needs. And then in the end, we did have people who were able to come and pick up clothing and go on job interviews.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that you sharing some of the impact and some of the stats, because I think, I was also, the point you made about there being a silver lining. Yvonne mentioned that I'm chairing the program committee and I work with the program team, which I think they're an incredible group of people who are working so hard and making those pivots. And to see that, a lot of the content that was, in person moved to online workshops, and to see that make it just that much more accessible to a broader group of women was actually just, very heartwarming, and feeling like, okay, the impact is there, which I think is great. And you mentioned that you're talking to the women and getting their feedback as to their changing needs. So based on what you're hearing, do you think there's going to be continued evolution of the offerings, or how we serve women over the course of this year?
Absolutely. The needs are evolving. But again, like I mentioned earlier, the needs were there before. And we have been working on them in the background and trying to build towards helping them. Right. So one of the things that we'll be launching this year is a program called Technology for Life. And I know I saw some of our partners from Sony have joined the call. We're going to be launching that program in conjunction with Sony, and it's really geared at a new program string that helps our clients get up to speed in the virtual world. Before the pandemic, many of them didn't have regular cell phones. They had limited data plans, and many still do. And Wi-Fi is always a challenge. But there are so many technology skills now that we take for granted that are enabling people to job search, actually succeed in their job, and also to manage their life and deal with their children's issues. So we really are developing a curriculum that will help our clients get up to speed in the virtual world. I'm very excited about that. And so we'll have an announcement on that soon. Then we're also launching self-referral. So we have reached out to a trial group of former clients and asked them if there are people in their world who have never been Bottomless Closet clients, but now need our services. There are a lot of people who never thought they'd be a Bottomless Closet client. They wouldn't consider themselves disadvantaged in any way. But this pandemic has put a lot of people out of work who never thought they'd be there before. And so we want to be there to serve as many people as possible. And so we're all, the third thing I'd mention is that we're also going to ask people if there's anybody in their world who is job searching or job seeking. Ordinarily, we require you to have a job interview scheduled to come in our doors, but we know there just aren't a lot of job interviews happening right now, and there are a lot of people searching. So we want to make sure as many women as possible are ready to go as soon as those jobs open up. And so we're using all these tools to get more people in the door and ready to go with their resume, with their interview skills. We have a lot of tools that have been developed during this time that actually, make the job searching world more impersonal. Like, again, we're all about individualized and high touch, and the job world has gotten more no touch, right? The whole world has gotten more to no touch, right? So we want to get clients comfortable with all the different scenarios they could be walking into.
Got it. Okay, that looks like a very robust, you guys have a lot of work ahead of you.
And you're going to be there to help us. I know that.
I will be there. So let's now pivot actually to how this is all going to happen. Let's talk about fundraising for a moment. And from a fundraising standpoint, this is for traditional fundraising, this has been a really, really odd year. And, with no in-person events and, and all that. And I remember joining, and then the first thing right away was the virtual luncheon. And that was the first ever virtual luncheon. And I thought the team did a phenomenal job because there was no precedent to figure out how to do this. Right. And they did it. And the donors were incredibly amazing and supported. So can you talk a bit about how those contributions supported what you were just talking about in terms of the services?
Absolutely. We have an amazing community. Again, thank you is all I can say from this year, because none of the programming I've been talking about would have been possible without our amazing community. That is the staff, the board, our incredible group of volunteers and long-standing supporters. This community was built starting 22 years ago by a group of New York City women working together to help other women, and it's continued to do that. And we've had to learn how to do that again, right, in this very unique time. But I think that we have been perfectly poised to do that because of the community that we have. Our virtual luncheon raised $550,000, which was amazing. And as you said, no one had done it at the time that we did it. There were one or two smaller events. And we knocked it out of the park, which was fantastic. And again, that's kudos to everybody who is here and not here, but here in spirit, who helped get that event off the ground. We also had Operation Hope over the summer, which was really to raise funds at a non-traditional time for us, but also to keep people hopeful. If you remember, the pandemic was spiking over the spring and summer in some places, and people were losing hope. And I know, Yasmin, you participated in the Operation Hope campaign, but we asked for quotes from people saying, how are you trying to remain hopeful during this time? And we had quotes from clients, volunteers, staff, board members, supporters, and we raised some money, but we also really had a non-financial ask, which was nice, and kept people hopeful and motivated. So that was great. And then we also did some virtual fundraising events. And I want to give a huge, shout out to our Emerging Leaders Young Professionals Network, who really spearheaded those efforts. We had working out online, we had a wine tasting, we had cooking class, trivia, magic, all kinds of fun things. And all these efforts were really able to set up the shortfall to our traditional fundraising. The luncheon, while I mentioned that it did raise a really nice sum of money, it's not the same as having an in-person event. That event usually raises 40% of our budget. And we did not raise as much as we did in the past. Also, some of our funders weren't able to support us at all in 2020 because of their own personal circumstances. We have partners in the fashion space, in hospitality, all different kinds of industries that were impacted, individuals that were impacted or sick. Also, we were competing against causes that we don't usually compete against, like food insecurity and homelessness organizations. And we understood why those were more immediate needs at the time. But basically, we worked very, very hard to raise the same number of dollars. And we're going to have to do that again this year. We did cut expenses last year. We actually brought our budget down a little bit for this year in anticipation of the uncertainty of this year. And we were also very lucky to benefit from a Paycheck Protection Program grant from the government. So all those things put together got us there. But this year is still a struggle to raise funds. And again, we're counting on this community to continue their amazing support that we've had. But it is a time of uncertainty. Things are opening, as you mentioned, which is very exciting. But we're still going to have our virtual event, which we're going to talk about shortly. And we need everybody to support it and really kind of go with us through this year to get our clients through and get them what they need through our fundraising efforts.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate you sharing some of those challenges and cutting expenses and thinking about, while running an organization. I think it's very in line with the other organizations that I work with as I kind of have been navigating this year. And hats off to you and the team for doing that and continuing to make sure that the client's needs are, in this front and center throughout all of this. As you kind of speak to our amazing donors and as I think whenever I donate, I always think about impact and where's my money going and how do I make sure that I have the greatest impact. And so as you speak to our donors, what exactly, what would you say to them? Why should they be making a contribution to Bottomless Closet?
I always say, even in the office, people come to meet with me. And I feel like if they get to experience the program firsthand before they come into my office, my job is already done because they see the program in action. So this year has been a lot harder to demonstrate the good work we're doing because a lot of it is occurring virtually. But I can tell you, we're at the perfect spot at the intersectionality of gender, race, and geography of New York City of this crisis. As I said earlier, our clients are women of color living in New York City who are minimum wage workers or less. They are the victims of the pandemic that we need to keep talking about. And homeschooling has impacted that tremendously. Any donation to Bottomless Closet is a donation and a commitment to not leaving these women behind. We know that if we don't take care of these women, we don't take care of their families, we leave the whole family behind because we know when a woman succeeds, our entire family is successful as well.
I think, and I mean, definitely why I'm involved, but can you tell me like when what exactly are the donations funding? What exact services are, and then how do we gauge impact?
Sure. So our funding is going to fund hopefully both virtual and in-person programming this year. We're already starting to do a little bit in person with clothing pickup, but we know it is going to help us continue to deliver workshops, continue to deliver clothing to our clients, continue to get them whatever they need. And I wouldn't, again, commit to a specific thing beyond that because we know their needs are going to be changing and we're going to be responding to those needs. So we're going to do what we have always done, but in different ways throughout the year, for sure. And those clients who aren't getting job interviews, I think you can count on us to sustain them for their job search. And that's really important as well. These are in a position where it's so easy for them to fall off the track and not come back to the workforce anytime soon. And we have a track record of success in working with this population. Before the pandemic, 58% of the women who came through our doors for a first appointment got hired for their job interview. And 98% of those clients cited us as a key to their success. And the one-on-one client feedback has been, you have been a lifeline during this pandemic. So we're giving the clients what they need right now, and they trust us to continue to deliver that.
Wonderful. And I think we all had our fingers crossed that, by the time we got around to this time of year that we would be back to in-person, but not the case yet. We're not ready. So it looks like our luncheon is going to be our second virtual luncheon. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what you learned last year and how you're going to incorporate that into this one, and what it's going to look like?
Absolutely. So we're really excited for our luncheon. It's going to be May 19th at noon, Eastern Standard Time. And you can get more details at bottomlesscloset.org on the homepage. The theme of this year's luncheon is Rise. So we all want to rise from the ashes of this pandemic for sure, but Rise stands for Resilient Like Our City, inspiring women to go further, stronger together, and empowering all New York City women. It's what we do every day, and we think that message really speaks to where we're going. We've really chosen honorees who speak to that message as well. Our first honoree is Katie Cerino, who is the founder of a company called Mega Babe. She's also a body positivity activist and speaks a lot about empowering women, about inclusivity. She works with companies to have a more inclusive size range and really consider women in their clothing choices for their line of products. Then we've got Stephen Wolf Pereira, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Encantos. Encantos is a digital children's programming company. They create reading materials and educational modules for children, and they have played a key role in the pandemic. Their materials are bilingual, and they are all about empowering communities of color and women. So it's a great time for us to be partnering with them, and it's going to be a great tool for moms to use as they're supporting some of our moms with the tools that they offer. And finally, one of my favorites, Mira, who is one of our volunteers. She is the Louise Kleinberg Volunteer of the Year, and she is one of 3 generations of Bottomless Closet volunteers. And she has been working with clients for a long time. She's on our program committee, but she's also just a great example of someone who's found just, raised her hand whenever there is an opportunity to say, how can I help Bottomless Closet? And this year, Mira took up painting, and she painted several folks' puppies, and she asked that the commissions for those paintings be donated to Bottomless Closet. So we're really excited to honor her and all the other folks. But we're going to have some client speakers and hear their inspirational stories firsthand, right? It's great that we have honorees that are living the ethos that we speak to as far as empowering women, but to hear from clients themselves about their Bottomless Closet experience is great. And then there'll be some other surprises, which I'm not going to tell you about now, but we want everybody to tune in again, May 12th at noon Eastern Standard Time, bottomlesscloset.org for more details. And I think Yvonne put in the chat the best way to sign up. So we hope to have many of you join us individuals, and we're still looking for corporate sponsors for the event as well. So please join us.
All right. Well, that sounds awesome. I'm excited. Thank you. Thank you for the details and leaving us in suspense. I think we're doing well on time. We do want to open it up to Q&A, which if you have a question, you've submitted in the chat, and I'll hand over to Yvonne. But before I do that, I think one last parting thought from you, Melissa. In the position that you're in and what you do every day, is there a parting thought or an idea that you would leave the donors with in terms of, what kind of a difference their contributions make?
Absolutely. I think, you've heard all the things we've done differently this year, but something too important to remember is success looks different this year. It looks different this year for all of us, right? So we have clients who, again, may not be getting full-time jobs right now, but they're getting part-time jobs. They're taking classes online. They're learning a new skill. They're educating their children, right? They are speaking to other clients. We just had a client last week, and I love these stories, Stephanie, who had been she took a job, she lost her job during COVID, and she had been a longer term client. She took a job as a census taker part-time, then she took a job as a poll worker, and now she's working at a nonprofit 1 day a week, but she's also still participating in our workshops. And just last week, she gave us a $25 donation. And that may seem rather small. It wasn't something we solicited, but the fact that she's in a position to do that and that was important to her, I think is really special. And one of the things that the clients always ask me at the end of their appointments or when I speak to them is, you've done so much for me, and how can I thank you and thank Bottomless Closet? And my message is always just pay it forward in some way. And they said, I don't have anything. I said, but you have the power of your experiences to share with others, right? And so whether you can give us $25 or you can share your story, or you can, help bring in new clients to our world, as we were saying before, with, self-referral and job searching. All of us, I know Yasmin, you're here because you want to help empower other women. And right now, all of our collective efforts, whether you're a client, a board member, a volunteer, are helping empower women so that we don't have a whole generation of women left behind, because we all fought really hard for the gains that we've made in the workforce, and we don't want to let them go because of a little thing called the pandemic.
Could not agree more. Thank you so much, Melissa. I mean, I found this incredibly informative personally. I hope everyone that tuned in felt the same way. We can now move on to Q&A. Yvonne, are there any questions in the chat?
So far, there are no questions in the chat. Everybody, either that means everyone's a little shy or your conversation has been so awesome. It covered everything that people wanted to ask, but I'll leave a bit of space and say, people feel free to put those questions in the chat. In the meantime, believe it or not, I have a question, just even though we've worked on this together. I was just wondering, Melissa and Yasmin, if you could speak to some of the ways we're looking to get a broader, diverse group involved, and how maybe men can be more involved in Bottomless Closet. Because as you said, Melissa, we started off very much as a women empowering women organization, but maybe just speak a little bit to how we're expanding that thinking this year particularly.
Absolutely. Men are a really important part of this conversation. It's one of the reasons we're honoring Stephen Wolf Pereira as an example. Also, Derek Warburton, who's a stylist out in LA, he is actually someone who has been homeless in the past. And whenever he visits New York, he always gives a workshop to our clients on how to style themselves for job interviews and to feel good in their clothes and confident, most importantly. And during this virtual time, Derek has made it a point to do workshops for our clients. We've also just brought on Dr. Marvin Singh as our health advisor. We're really introducing a lot of wellness programming for our clients. It's something that corporate America is doing, but also we've heard from our clients in those surveys that they really need and want this programming. And the feedback on it has been incredible. So we have, many examples of men getting involved and wanting to help right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would,
go ahead.
The only thing I'd add to that is, I think, I mentioned I work with a lot of female-founded organizations, and they all have the same kind of issue where it starts off very female-focused, and then they want to expand and diversify. And I think this is something that Melissa and the team can't do alone. I think this is something that the board members and the volunteers and the donors and everyone involved needs to just reach out to someone they know. And diversity is obviously, like, we're looking for male partners to help give a coaching or an interview workshop, all things, but also not just men, like just people from all walks of life, different ages, different races, different ethnicities. I think all of that just makes the organization so much stronger, and the offering we provide, so much more impactful. So I think it's an ask to everyone on the call. If you know someone who has a bit of time to offer and would be willing to do that, it's so much easier now. You can do it from your, an hour at home on Zoom and give a workshop than having to, commute to somewhere to do it. I think if that is something, people in your network, please reach out and send them our way.
That's a great point. Yasmin. We've also seen that the rates of unemployment for Hispanic women have been higher than even for Black women. And one of the things we're looking to do is add some bilingual programming to our workshop offerings. So we're really trying to reach everybody and have everybody participate. And to that end, we would like some bilingual volunteers to join our network as well.
Great. So I have quite a few questions that have been coming in to me directly. So I'm going to just try and funnel those. The first question that came in was around, have we considered expanding our service to beyond New York City so the New Jersey area was a question that was posed.
Sure. So, one of the things I can say is about 98% of our clients come from Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. We've got a little percentage that those who know Pam know she works really hard to get the Staten Islanders in, but that's still in the low single digits, right? So we know that there are a lot of people in need in New York City alone. And we have a lot of work to do right here, right now. We do have partners across the river in New Jersey, and we are looking at opportunities to have our clients work with them, corporate partners, work with them, and whether that's an opportunity that opens up in the future, we're definitely looking at that. But right now, our sole focus is on New York City and the thousands of women who are out of work here.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Two other questions I'm going to sort of pair together because they relate to our client experience. One is whether our clients are interviewing now, and if we know the answer to this question, if they're interviewing more in person or if they're still interviewing virtually. And also, how does the close pickup part of the appointment work? So does the client pick up or do we deliver the close? Or maybe you could just talk through a little bit the operations of that.
Sure. So it's a mix. There are people interviewing in person, but the majority are doing virtual interviews. And I think it's important to remember that based on the population demographics that I described earlier in this meeting, this is a population where they still need the clothes because they are going on interviews online. They may not have the proper shirt to wear. It's very, very basic. So we have, since the summer, started bringing the clothing back to folks. And ordinarily, we work in a very individualized nature and create basically a personal shopping experience for clients to pick out the clothing that they wear. But during this time, our office manager has been curating clothes based on information we get from clients. So we're still trying to be individualized. We just can't have a lot of clients in the boutique right now. So, we get your size. We ask you, do you feel comfortable wearing a dress or pants, or, do you need a certain color, things of that nature. And we're also guiding our clients as to what we're learning for this time online, right? So we're trying to solicit donations of tops, for example, that aren't having loud prints because we know online people think solid colors look better and are less distracting, right? So we're trying to really bring in inventory that supports clients interviewing in both in-person and virtual opportunities.
Thanks, Melissa. Another question I have here is around financial literacy. And you mentioned earlier that more than half the women who come to see us are underbanked. Have we considered, or maybe you could speak to our partnerships with financial institutions and how we work on increasing the financial literacy of the women we serve?
Absolutely. Financial management has been a core part of our curriculum for a very long time. It was actually started by a former board member, Tammy Peter. I don't know if she's on the call today, but she's fantastic. And, we have this population that is not only unbanked, but in many cases afraid of the banking system. They've had problems with their credit in the past. They come from communities where they're told not to trust banks and they haven't built up savings. And so we have been keeping those workshops going and realizing that, our clients may have more limited funds right now, but it is still very important to keep them adept at how to handle their money during this time. And we're going to continue offering those classes, and we really want to have some clients graduate from that program this year, if at all possible. Financial literacy is something that, unfortunately, no matter what your education level, has been shown that women are not financially literate in many cases, even at people who have graduate degrees, right? So this is going to be a very important factor for us all going forward.
Excellent. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Yasmin.
What I'd add to that is, at the board level, I think we're incredibly fortunate that a number of our new board members either work at or are very closely associated with financial institutions. And I think we're very much looking to partnerships and tapping into the incredible networks already that are in those organizations like American Express and Citi, and like a lot of them that are focused on this, and bringing them in. And, it is definitely top of mind because, having worked in these organizations, it's really not that hard for them to support in terms of the workshops and the programs that have already been developed for their employees. So we're trying to tap into those at these organizations. So very good question. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just to kind of build on both of those points, in an earlier meeting, Pam was highlighting to us a client who had taken some of the budgeting skills she learned in a financial literacy workshop, had pivoted to work in track and tracing for COVID, and managed to save $10,000 in the last 12 months. So we're really seeing some clients who take those financial literacy skills and really build out on them. Okay, this is an interesting question, and one I know we've talked about at a senior level too. Have we considered changing the name of the organization? Bottomless Closet indicates that it's all about helping women with their wardrobes, while we've been contributing more holistically to different facets of their lives. So Melissa, maybe you want to speak to that one.
Sure. It's something that goes on in every organization at various times. We are actually currently embarking on a strategic planning process right now, and it's a question that always comes up. And we look at it from time to time, what makes sense. But the good news is that our brand recognition has gone up, right? And as was said earlier, I've been here 5 years. And when I first came in, even though the organization had been around about 17 years, people didn't know the name Bottomless Closet. And now when I start to meet new partners, well, first of all, the fact that partners are approaching us versus me approaching them, right, is a great thing. But I go into rooms now, virtually and physically, and people know our name and have heard about us. And so there is brand recognition built up in that name, but it's certainly something that we always revisit, and every organization revisits periodically. And one of the reasons it's called Bottomless Closet is because it's not just about the clothes. It is bottomless. And we are showing that during the pandemic now more than ever, in that we have a whole chest of tools that we are whipping out to help people. So it is still speaking to our mission, but we continue to revisit like every good organization should during their strategic planning process.
Yeah. And I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think it's something that is, it's an excellent question because it's something we talk about all the time. There's a lot of history that comes with the name itself and the founders. And so we don't want to lose that. But at the same time, I think for the name tends to be a vessel for what we do with it. And so what are we doing with it? What's our PR around it? And how are we making sure that when people, see the name Bottomless Closet, that they think about the coaching and the interview skills and all the other stuff and not just the clothing? And I don't think we're there yet. And I think we're very focused on that. How do we get there so that when someone sees the name Bottomless Closet, thinks of all of those things and not just the clothing? So very, very top of mind and very core to our strategic planning process right now.
100%. And just again, just to build on both of those points, when we're having individual conversations like this, or meetings, it's easy, and when people come on site they get it. But the challenge is, when we're doing broader communications and we don't have a big advertising budget, or we don't even have dedicated communications resource. We're a small team. So if anybody on this call has access to that type of resource and wants to help us with it, we would be more than happy to have that conversation. We have still some questions coming in, which is awesome. The next two I'm sort of also going to bundle together a little bit because they're both about long term and how the pandemic has sort of caused us to rethink Bottomless Closet for the long term. And then specifically thinking about, in terms of our operating budget, our rent and our 52nd Street location and our staff salaries are huge portions of our budget. Maybe Melissa, I know you've already kind of talked a little bit through some of the tough decisions we had to make, but maybe you could think about maybe you could share how we're thinking about this for the longer term and just what Bottomless Closet might look like in the longer term.
Absolutely. This time is all about creativity. As you heard earlier, we've responded to the client needs, and we'll continue to respond to the client needs and keep them top of mind. One of the things that we've been looking at over time is how we can get more embedded in clients' communities, right? So during this time, clients didn't have to come to us, and we know there are barriers to coming to us. So looking at whether, we are in the right place in the city, whether we should be exploring potential for pop-up opportunities in communities throughout the boroughs, mobile opportunities, really meeting clients where they are and offering them our services. So as part of strategic planning, we'll look at all of those things.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa. Another question is about how people can volunteer and what sort of virtual volunteering opportunities are available. And it might be worth just talking about for both an individual and for a group, like a corporate group, because I know we have some companies on here.
Sure. So you can go to bottomlesscloset.org, and there's a tab that you will see opportunities for volunteers. And individual volunteers have always been a core part of our programming. We are very reliant on our volunteers in person and virtually. Right now, individual volunteers are conducting client coaching and resume review sessions virtually. We are asking some volunteers to deliver workshop programming, but a lot of corporate partners are actually delivering workshop programming on a variety of topics. They are, really run the gamut from, as I mentioned earlier, financial topics to wellness. I think someone from Shapermint is on the call, and Shapermint actually sponsored our International Women's Day programming, which was about self-care. I remember this very clearly. We had 52 clients on that call, and they all had a really good experience. So, we're really looking to work with as many companies as possible. There are a lot of skills within companies. It doesn't have to be financial. It could be HR. It could be self-care. There's lots of different topics that our clients need. So we'd always love to have new partners so we can give back to our clients. One thing we did actually last week was we had a new partner named Vinton York. They're an eyewear company, and they offered a workshop with an optometrist teaching clients about eye care and all of us sitting in front of machines for a long time, right? And what that does to your eyes. And offer our clients free eye exams, which you can actually do virtually now, which is kind of cool, and glasses. So really just lots of opportunities to get involved and help other women.
Well, that virtual eye appointment is a nice segue into the next question. Could we ever envisage doing virtual clothing appointments?
Absolutely. I think some of that is being done now. Not everybody can come to us to get clothing. I think, again, just, explaining to people that you need a solid color, right? And maybe something that you have, a lot of what we do in person is piecing together the perfect outfit. And that perfect outfit doesn't have to be this really fancy dress. It's what you feel comfortable in, how you can present yourself confidently. Today I'm wearing a soft jacket, right? Not a very stiff blazer. And so a lot of those things are, pieces that clients may have that they can put together an outfit with. It's not cookie cutter for everybody. So it's all about being comfortable and presenting yourself in a way that you feel confident.
Great, thank you. And then the last question is actually one that I'm happy to take, which is about our monthly donation program, and if that's something we could consider. And the answer is absolutely yes. We're working on our back end right now, our donation page, to make that really easy for people, but we do actually have a monthly donation program. So if anybody wants to participate in that, you can reach out to me directly. I can put my email in the chat. And in fact, both Melissa and my emails are on the Bottomless Closet website, bottomlesscloset.org. If you go to the staff page, you can get our information there. Yasmin's isn't, but I'm sure we can provide that to anybody who asks for that. I am just mindful of time. We're looking at 5 minutes to 1 now, and we had said we'd do a wrap up at 1 o'clock. But I just want to thank everybody so much for coming, for the participation, Yasmin and Melissa for the really great and inspiring conversation. What I would say is, if anybody's feeling really enthusiastic after this call and feeling, that you have the kind of good vibes from all that we've been doing, this is nothing compared to the luncheon. So put the 19th of May in your calendar. It's at noon. I shared the link in the chat, but it's on our website as well. And we will have some phenomenal speakers and most of all our clients at that. Also, you can always follow us on social media. We are very active on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think the only thing we have not yet embraced is TikTok, but you never know. We may be there at some point. So that's a really good way to keep informed. And we have been doing a little more over email in the last 12 months because we know how important it is to keep our community informed of what we're doing. So again, just thanks everybody for all of what you've done for us in the last 12 months and before, and for being here today. And thanks everyone for participating.
Thank you, Yvonne. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Good to see you all.